Welcome back to center stage. Everybody, our guest is actor and athlete Mark Harmon. So you go to UCLA, and Pepper Rogers is the coach. How did you do in your debut?
You know, UCLA had won 2 games the year before, and they opened the season that year against two-time defending national champion Nebraska. They'd won 33 consecutive games and had 7 consensus All-Americans, and we beat them. And I'm glad we didn't have to play them again the next day because they were pretty pissed off.
What kind of thrill is that?
You know, it's funny because it's taking that story back, but I was in that tunnel behind all these gold helmets, and all of a sudden, you know, you just hear this roar of the crowd and running out onto that field, and all of a sudden people were moving around, and as I ran by, our head coach was doing somersaults in the middle of the field.
Really?
Yeah, that was my first reaction. Yes, that was what it was. That was weird. You know, and then as I went around that and got my head back up and started running across the field, I heard one guy in the middle of this entire 90,000, 80,000, you know, spectators yell, "Harmon, you stink," you know. And so that's my first memory of it. And it actually makes me laugh because, you know, on the way out after we'd won, I was jogging out back through the tunnel, and I got hit in the helmet with a Go Big Red seat cushion, which I picked up and had the team sign. I still have it. So there you go.
Wow. Now, I had read stories, Mark, that your dad after the game congratulated you, and that was rare, getting that sort of feedback.
Well, my dad, you'll appreciate this, Michael, but my dad broadcast the UCLA games. And when I chose to go there, he tried to step down as the broadcaster, and J.D. Morgan wouldn't let him. But he was concerned about bias, and it's one thing to play in a game like that or play at that level. It's another thing to have your dad sounding off on national television, or you know.
Right.
And so he did that by calling me the quarterback. He wouldn't call me by name. He'd say the quarterback off tackle over 3 yards, quarterback drops back to pass. And so at home I became the quarterback. But after that game, my dad was standing on the far wall of the locker room, and he had not come inside the cubicle. He was outside. And I didn't see him there. I just turned left and started to go to the showers, and all of a sudden he said, "Hey, great game." You know, and I turned around and hugged him, and the interesting part about that for me is I've always said that from that moment on I knew my dad. You know?
2 years at UCLA, the team went 17-5. You ran for 14 TDs and 9 TDs in a wishbone offense. You never beat USC. What was that rivalry like, USC, UCLA?
That was a pain in the ass. It was, I grew up in a town where that game was always what it was about at the end of the year. I was 9 years old sitting in a movie in Westwood, and all of a sudden the lights went up in the middle of the movie, and all these students came down the aisles, and they got up on the top of the stage, the stage there, and they started doing an UCLA 8 clap, and UCLA just beat SC, and then they went out onto the streets, and me and half the people in the audience followed them and went out there too with them, and that's how I was raised, in that kind of environment.
Did you get recruited by USC?
I didn't, no. And yet most of the guys that played on those teams, you all know each other, and I still know some of those guys pretty well. Some of those guys I played against on another team, they're probably in prison somewhere. But you know what? You want to be in a position as an athlete to have it all on the line for 60 minutes. And both those years we did. And I think they were a better team my junior year. But I'll go to my grave thinking we should have beat them my senior year, and we didn't.
Now, you end up graduating with a degree in communications. You don't go pre-med. But I was always wondering that after you graduated, did you ever think about playing professionally?
I had the opportunity.
Why not? Why didn't you do it?
You know, I just had always thought that college is supposed to be about getting an education and moving on from that and doing something else. And it wasn't an easy decision. I just made the transition earlier than most. Nobody thought it was a good idea. Nobody thought giving up the money they were offering to go to camp was a good idea compared to what I did, which is end up in advertising and going to acting classes.
Any regrets now?
No, I don't look back easily on anything. Mm-hmm. And I just think life's about memories, and life's about associations and friendships, and yeah, the wins and the losses, those are important, but I don't, that's not what I remember about it. I remember the people.
All right, so he doesn't go pre-med, but he does become a doctor. How does that work out? We'll tell you when we return on Center Stage.